understand how your own mind works. You make choices, you weigh options, you decide. Fine. So why do you keep thinking when you don't want to? Why do thoughts show up without permission? What stops careful control from shutting the whole thing down? Most people never ask. They say overthinking, or stress, or bias. They repeat words, but that's not an answer. When you really ask why, you find something that changes how you see thinking itself. Not as reasoning, but as an engine with a trapdoor built into it. Let me show you. For the next 10 seconds, don't think about anything. No planning, no remembering, no narrating. Just nothing. It doesn't work. Now try something even simpler. Don't think about a white bear. The white bear appears instantly. And that's the trapdoor. To avoid a thought, you have to monitor for it. And monitoring is thinking. So the moment you demand silence, you generate more activity. Let that sit there. Your mind isn't a quiet room. It's a browser with too many tabs open. And the moment one tab stays unfinished, the engine keeps it running. That's the real shape of this problem. Not why am I like this, but why do the tabs reopen by themselves? You think thinking is something you do, like moving an arm. Start when you want, stop when you want. Wrong. Thoughts don't behave like actions. They behave like outputs. They arrive, they interrupt, they repeat, and sometimes they reopen something you thought was dead, an old mistake, a half-finished decision, a scene you never resolved, a tab you never closed. Here's the first rule. Your brain is never truly off. Even when you're doing nothing, the engine keeps running. Because baseline activity is the default state. And there's a number that makes this hard to ignore. When people go from resting to doing a demanding mental task, the brain's energy use barely rises. Not double, not even close. Often the increase is under 5%. Under 5, meaning the engine was already running. You didn't turn it on. You redirected it, so your mind doesn't begin when you start thinking. It's already active. What changes is where the activity points. Out toward the world, or inward toward memory and prediction, and this explains something you felt but never named. Silence isn't neutral. You think silence is neutral. Wrong. Silence is empty space. And the brain hates empty space. When there's nothing to process, it spits out something. A fragment, a worry, a rehearsal, a replay, a fresh tab opening itself in the background. But wait, if the engine is always running, why does it feel like you're choosing what it produces? Why does it feel like you author your thoughts, when thoughts appear first and choice arrives later? That feeling comes from the next limit. Your conscious workspace is tiny. It feels big because it's vivid, not because it's wide. Here's the number. At any moment, you can hold about 3 to 5 meaningful items in working memory. 3 to 5, that's not a mind, that's a peephole. Try this. Hold a phone number in your head. Now add one more digit. It collapses. That's the size of your conscious workspace. So the mind does something clever. It compresses, it takes a messy, detailed world and turns it into small objects it can carry. Labels, summaries, handles. And when it can't compress cleanly, it repeats. That's what a thought loop is. Not a curse. A tab that won't close, and every open tab costs energy. You felt this? You're showering, and suddenly you're back in a conversation from 3 years ago. Same sentence, same tone, same regret. Not because you chose it, Because the engine reopened the tab, it's trying to shrink something too big to hold, trying to reduce it to something portable, trying to make it fit through the peephole, and when it doesn't fit, it plays again. So most of what feels like thinking is the brain trying to fit reality into a space, too small to hold it. Now here's the strange part. The mind doesn't just want information. It wants an ending, because endings close tabs. Endings stop the background process. So the brain has a bias, not toward truth, toward coherence. Coherence is faster. Truth can stay open. Truth can be uncertain. Truth can wait. Which leads to the next rule. The mind doesn't optimize for accuracy. It optimizes for a story that makes sense. Make it ugly and ordinary. Someone doesn't text back. Your brain doesn't wait for data. It writes a story. They're ignoring me. They're angry. I did something wrong. Coherence arrives before truth. And once that story exists, it runs in the background like a tab you didn't open on purpose. You don't suffer because you think too much. You suffer because the story generator won't leave a scene unresolved. This is why thoughts feel urgent, not because the topic is important, because the open tab is important. An unanswered question is a leak in the model. A contradiction is a crack in the story. So the mind keeps rewriting. It tries on meanings. It patches holes, because closure is cheaper than accuracy. But wait, if the mind is building stories this aggressively, why does it feel like you're seeing reality directly? Why does consciousness feel continuous and reliable? Because there's one more catch. Attention is not a camera. It's a spotlight. And the spotlight doesn't just point at things. It skips. There's a measurable gap in what you register. In fast perception tests, if one target appears and the next target follows too quickly, you often miss the second one, not because it wasn't there, because your awareness didn't encode it. That gap is around 200 to 500 milliseconds, 2 to 5/10 of a second where perception drops frames, meaning you can miss reality in real time and still feel certain you saw everything. So what you live inside isn't raw reality. It's an edited narrative. The skips aren't shown. The missing pieces aren't labeled missing. They're filled in. And that feels like reality. Now stack the rules together. This architecture can't do silence. The engine runs even at rest. Your workspace holds 3 to 5 items. Coherence beats truth. Attention drops, frames. That combination forces a design. The mind can't afford full analysis. It can't afford full precision. So it runs on shortcuts. Fast pattern matching, fast meaning, fast closure. And this is the hidden reason. Thoughts appear without permission. You didn't request them. They emerged to stabilize the story. You didn't choose the loop. The workspace couldn't close the tab. You didn't decide to invent a meaning. Coherence arrived before the data. You didn't notice the skip. The spotlight dropped frames and the edit hid it. That's what thinking is. Not a calm tool. A fast process that trades accuracy for speed. And there's one more number that should reset your expectations. People's minds leave the present constantly. Not a little, a lot. In one large study, minds wandered about 47% of the time, almost half. Almost half of conscious life is the system running simulations instead of being here. So now we know why thoughts appear, but the scarier question is, why do they come back harder when you try to stop them? Because this is where the trapdoor becomes visible again. Trying to stop thinking feels like control. But control has a cost, and The cost is monitoring. Remember the white bear. Don't think about it. What happens? The mind has to run a new background process, a checker. Is it back? And to check for the thought, it has to represent the thought. The monitor is another tab. That's why suppression backfires. Not because you're weak, because the mechanism requires it. You can't turn off thinking with an order because the order creates scanning. The harder you demand silence, the more monitoring you generate. The more monitoring you generate, the more content you detect, and the mind feels louder. Not because you got worse, because you opened another tab to hunt the noise. And here's the part that feels personal. You think the you in your head is the driver, but most of the time it's the commentator. The thought appears, then the voice says, I thought that. The impulse happens, then the voice says, I decided that. Output first, authorship second. That's why control feels late. Nothing here is personal. It's structural. Thinking isn't a tool you control. It's what the system does when something feels unfinished. The noise isn't weakness. It's architecture, not comfort, truth. And if thinking is automatic, what exactly is the thing you call you?